All right. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So we'll begin for today. Mm, Last time we're discussing about subjects and emails, right? So I think we've had a fair amount of discussion about that. Today we are going to look at um, the rest of the part. That is, if you're to follow the contents of the email, then the next thing that you need to keep in mind is the salutations or the greetings, as they're generally called. Okay. So we'll look at that. Then the closing remarks part and also the complimentary close for today's class, right? And we'll sort of wind up on the structure of the email, professional emails. And one last class on this, which would be next week, we'll be looking at the language of emails. And by language, I mean the formal languages that are used particularly with respect to emails, as well as in general, what would formality in language mean, right? So we looked at it a little bit when in the introduction class and even for the emails as we were discussing, but we'll do more on that and maybe use a bit of practice questions to understand what exactly formality or aspects of formality mean. Okay. Although even when you're going to discuss this part of beginning emails and ending emails, we'll essentially be also discussing the formality part also, right? Okay. So we'll begin for today. See, on your screen, you can see a particular figure given, right? So understand that as we look at the right way or the most suitable approach to writing salutations, we're basically also working on the aspect of formality, right? So we're talking about professional emails, and we've discussed enough on how formal aspects are important in professional emails. So everything that we are going to discuss is also going to be centered around it, including the salutations, right? So please look at the screen carefully. What do you see? You see there are different ways, at least 4 different ways in which we can begin an email, right? Please look at them for yourself, the 4 blocks that you see there, and see what would be the difference. Try and assess what would be the difference between all the 4 that's there. Okay, the first one, dear Mr. Selvam, the name can be replaced as you wish. These are just sample names. So, dear Mr. Selvam, or dear Mrs. or Miss Selvi, right? The second one says, dear Selvam or Selvi, right? That is dear Selvam or dear Selvi. Hello Selvam, hello Selvi. Hi Selvam, hi Selvi. Now, what is the difference that you spot here? It's right there on the screen, but it'd be nice if you can formulate a bit on your own as well. Yes? Do you see a range that is mentioned there, right? More formal to less formal. Yes, visible? Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Huh. So, just a moment. Right. So this scale basically tells you about the formality levels that each of these salutations occupy, right? So remember, when you talk about formality, we are not talking in terms of absolute terms, absolute measures, right? We basically are saying that some expressions or some form of expressions of salutations are more formal as compared to the others. Now, in this case, the first 2 blocks that you see here, right? Dear Mr. Selvam, if I have to make a skeleton out of this, then it would look like dear dash Mr., Miss, Mrs., and the first name of the person, right? This is a more formal method than simply writing, say, something like dear Selvam or Selvi, that is dear followed by the person's first name, which is a more formal expression than saying hello and the person's first name, which in turn again is more formal as compared to saying just hi and the person's first name, right? So it is in decreasing order. If you look at it, the formality is in decreasing order. right? So this is most commonly used methods of writing a salutation in an email. Now, needless to mention, the first two are the ones that are usually more commonly used expressions in formal emails or professional emails. The last two ones are usually reserved for more sort of an informal communication, right? So say hello and hi. This is usually for people who this is again used in organizations and in professional domains, but now these are between people who are at the same level in the hierarchy, right? So you don't say hello hi when you're writing to someone who's a superior, right? You do not write dear and the first name if again this person is a superior. Okay, you can very well write this to a manager sort of a person, but definitely not someone who's above that, right? Somebody who's above that, someone who's like a super senior at your workplace, for that person the first block is reserved, dear, Mr., and then the first name. Now, there's another method in which the first part is done, right? If you want to keep it extremely formal, for example, say you're writing to somebody whom you have never met, you have no familiarity with, this person is an external person to your organization, or rather you're trying to communicate something to someone who's external to your organization. In such cases, you go a bit more formal than your first block, which is dear Mr. and the first name of the person. How do you do that? In such kind of situations, when you do not know the person, this is the first time you're approaching them or writing an email to them, you use dear, Mr., and the full name of the person, right? These situations or this kind of salutations are also used in the case where you're not really familiar with the person's whereabouts, right? You just know the person. You're just given the name that, okay, there is Mr. So-and-so, and you have to draft a mail to the person and no more information, right? In such cases, the safest choice is to remain extremely formal in such cases, right? So in such situations, usually the method used is to start off your salutation with dear, followed by Mr., Mrs., Miss, whatever it is, and the full name of the person, right? But even if there is a slight familiarity or some sense of familiarity with the person, then dear Mr. Selvam, or sorry, dear Mr. and the first name would be fine, right? This is again within the organization, right? Within the organization, somebody who is super senior to you would be the first block. Someone who's your manager kind of person would take up the second block. And anybody who's your colleague or anybody who's, say, a subordinate to you in the office may either take hello or hi, depending on what sort of relations you share with them, right? But keep in mind that none of these expressions that you see, none of them in all the 4 blocks on the screen are informal, right? They're all formal, but in the decreasing order of formality. The first being the most formal and the last being the least formal. Okay? So that's how it is. Informal, why do I say there is no informality in any of these? Because informals will not follow any of these rules, right? You can use even the names that are very personal to you, right? Something like a pet name or anything. So that is a very different domain. When we discuss formality for professional emails, we just mean that everything is formal, but one is more formal than the other, okay? Or one is the most formal form and one is the least formal form, right? The least formal here is saying hi, right? Most formal would be the one that I mentioned, right? When you're writing to somebody who's external to the organization, dear Mr., Mrs., Miss, and the full name of the person, right? Someone who's familiar and from within your organization still is a super senior would take up the first block, right? Understood? So this is how you judge formalities and use salutations based on the hierarchy of people who you have at an organization. All right? Any questions so far? Okay, then we'll move to the next one, right? Now, writing an email to several people. Now, the first case that you saw was a one-on-one communication, right? When you're writing to somebody, just one person, right? But in case you have to write to several people, right? Then what is the formal method to do that? What is the most formal and what would be considered the least formal, right? More formal method, you simply address everyone as dear all. Okay, more formal method would be that. Followed by a simple hello everyone, right? That would be somewhere like a semi-formal method of addressing people, right? And then the last one, hi everyone, would be in this range considered the less formal aspects. What do you think would be the most formal aspect? Most formal. Say you're writing to several people, you have a situation at hand when you're writing to several people. However, you know, not all the people whom you are addressing are at the same levels. At least 2 or 3 among them are more important than the others. Yet, you have to address everybody together. How would you do that? Any suggestions? Do you understand the question? Yes.
Can you repeat again? Just,
I'm asking, say, in case you have to write to more than one people, right?
yeah.
And you are in a situation where you know that everyone whom you are addressing this email to are not of the same levels. That is, there is a clear hierarchy between people there. Yet the email has to be addressed to everyone. But at least say 2 or 3 people among them are actually, say, they are more important than others. So in such case, when you're drafting an email, how would you formulate your salutation? When these
Uh,
Ma'am,
hierarchies
dear
don't
all,
exist, it is easy. You can simply say dear all. Yeah, go ahead.
Generally,
Yes, yes.
I think generally we can dear all will be the one option, and we can say dear team also could be the one another option.
Uh-huh. See, that is okay. That is when you have a situation where you really don't care. You have to write an email, and this has to be addressed to a large audience or say several people, and there are no consequences of hierarchy. But say, for example, you are inviting a professor and his class to some workshop that you're organizing. So now clearly the professor and the class is not at the same level, right? Yet you're not going to send separate emails to both of them. Say you plan not to send separate emails. You're going to address both of them in the same email. So you have a situation where uh, there's more than one person, yet the people involved are at different levels. So what do you do?
Could we giving the salutation first to the professor, and then with the end we can address the team?
Yeah, you don't have to shift anything to the end. In such cases,
Okay.
like you very clearly mentioned, you can first address the most important person or the person
Yeah.
who's highest in the hierarchy, and then use simply all for others, right? So, say you're writing to the professor. So, you say, Dear Professor XYZ, and all. Okay. And everyone, or and the team, whatever you want to use. Okay. Or say if you
Yeah.
have more than one person who's important, say there's more than one professors, right? So then what would you do? You will mention both their names. If there are 3 people, you will mention 3 people's name, right? If you have chosen to write one person's name, then you do not ignore the other 2 if they're all at the same level, right? So you say dear Professor XYZ, Professor ABC, and others, or and the team, right? So this is how you will follow it up in case you have to address an audience which has a variation in the hierarchy structure. Okay. So some of these things you usually learn along as you write and you get new situations at hand, but never commit the mistake of not addressing people separately in case there is a difference in hierarchy. Okay. So all these things are important in the professional structures of writing, right? Which is why this becomes important. This discussion becomes important. Okay. Understood? Any questions? No? All good? Okay. So moving on, the next part is going to be on a situation, right? When you're writing an email to someone whose name is not known. Now, this is a very common situation, right? We all write to people. Sometimes you only know the designation. You do not know really who you're writing to. Okay. What are the different salutation methods based on formality aspects? Just two of them. There's just one method, dear sir or madam, right? And use this very sparingly, right? Most of the times, please make an effort to find out whether you're writing to a sir or a madam, right? Do some research about them, even if it is of least concern for whatever you're writing. It's always a good practice to know a little bit more about the person before writing them any email, right? And this is a non-written rule in professional domain. So you're all students, you might have to, and professionals, of course. There are situations where you have to write emails to professors, you have to write emails to someone or the other, or if you're applying for jobs, you apply to HRs, or you have to write to a contact who would help you with something. In all such cases, it is important that you look up these people online if they are available, or otherwise, say word of mouth. You need to get some information which includes at least their name and designation, so that you do not end up in situations where you have to use dear sir or madam, right? It doesn't sound very nice, but in extreme cases where there's no way, you really do not know who you are asking. Now, these situations happen usually when you're writing emails to, say, a government department, right? You do not know what this, who this officer is, right? Could be a male or a female. In such cases, it's all right. But if you're writing to organizations, particularly for, say, internships or jobs or admissions, etc., it's on us to find out and read a little bit, research a little bit about who we are writing to, right? So keep that in mind. Only if you don't have any options left, you're going to use this dear sir or madam salutation, okay? And less formal, obviously, just hello or hi would suffice, okay? Questions? Is there anything you want to ask?
Why don't we use respected sir or madam?
There's no need of using that. It's a very archaic way of addressing anybody. That's not really required at all. Okay, that's a very old system of approaching anyone. I mean, it's your choice. It's not like it's wrong to do that, but it's out of fashion. We don't use that, or it's neither considered professional, or it's not considered a very good way of doing thing also. Okay, but some practices continue. Some people do not like it unless they use respected. So if you're dealing with someone who's say from the 70s, 60s, 80s, then you probably will have to. But none of the corporate communication these days prefer using respected or yours truly and faithfully and all those kind of expressions. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Then, yes. Okay, so we'll move on. Okay, if you don't have questions. Sorry?
Ma'am, dear is a formal or informal?
Dear is formal. Dear is very formal.
Dear is formal.
Yes.
Okay.
Any email or even any letter, whether cover letter or letterheads, anything, they can certainly begin with dear. Okay. Dear is a formal expression in English, as opposed to what we might think. It's a very formal expression, right? So if you're writing to anybody, you can begin your salutation with dear sir, dear madam. It does not have any other meanings. It just means that you're addressing them in a very polite way. That's all. Okay. So, now read what you see on screen. If you know someone very well, use hello and hi without the person's name. Alternatively, one can also use the person's name without hello or hi, right? Now, this is what kind of a situation? This is a situation where the person whom you're writing to is your colleague and also your friend, right? So you have very friendly relations, you share friendly relations with each other. In such cases, simply a hello or hi or just the person's first name would be enough to communicate. However, this particular salutation or this way of greeting should not be used anywhere if you're dealing with someone who's above your position in the organization, right? So please keep this in mind. Then next time, maybe you share, even say, some people would say, but I have a good relation with my boss. We are very friendly. Or say, I have a very nice relationship with my professor or my manager. We're very friendly with each other. Yet, the formal space demands that you respect the hierarchy between both of you. It could happen that, you were batchmates at college, yet in the workplace, that person is senior to you in the hierarchy, right? So every email, every professional communication that happens between you, these are recorded, right? They are basically documented. So the conventions of the professional writing demands that you follow the structure properly while you write. So if there's somebody who's higher above you in the office, then there are certain ways that you address them. And if someone's subordinate or of your same level, there's a different way to do that, right? So your connections or your relationship outside the workspace really doesn't matter in the structure. So which is why this particular thing. So what you see here is something that you should be using very carefully. If you're really sure that the person is at the same level as you and you have a very good friendship with each other, then you can go ahead with this kind of communication, right? But none of this should be used in an email that you use to address everybody in your group or even say a senior or manager in the company. Okay. All right. Now we'll discuss a little bit more on this. I'm going to stop sharing this and share something else with you. Just give me a moment. Yes. Just confirm with me once you can see the screen carefully. Okay. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, all right. Now, just to recap on what we are discussing. So last class, we had talked about subject line, right? We just discussed salutations. And the next thing that we need to discuss is the body of the email. Now, what does it include? Look at the screen carefully. Body of the email includes everything from salutations to the complimentary close or signature, right? Which is the essential part inside the email field that you need to write yourself, right? Rest of the things you have filled separately to fill in. But beginning from salutations to signature, or say, even if signature is not an included part, at least till complimentary close, you will have to actively write on your own, right? So we are going to discuss this body part of the email from now. Salutations we did. Now we'll talk about the purpose, details, closing marks aspects of the email, right? A little bit on that. Look at this. We call the body of the email, or like you see here, the first thing that you read in the body of the email is what we refer to as the purpose statement, right? What is purpose statement? We talked about it last time. This is basically the first line, which is the purpose of why you're writing this email, right? It answers the question why. Why are you writing this email is what you're going to draft in this first line. So like we discussed, professional emails are always concise, right? 80 to 120 words is what we usually suggest, or 3 to 4 lines to talk in terms of sentences, right? So there is no space for building too much background and giving the settings and all that. This is a kind of communication that you do just to, ensure that certain actions are taken or inform about something that is important, right? Inform and persuade is basically the function of all the professional emails. Persuasion basically means, writing to somebody to take action for something, right? To get something done. So if that is the case, then you keep it to the point. And how do you bring in this conciseness? By beginning to write about why you're writing. So the first line in any professional email is going to be the purpose statement, where you define why you're writing the email for, right? Second thing, the details. Details, anything, any important and significant details that you need to provide in order to take an action, or any additional information that you want to give via the email would make up the second part, right? The second sentence, essentially. Now, this can range from 1 to 2 sentences. If you have to give a little more details, then you might have to go up to 2 sentences, right? But nothing more than that right? Try and limit it within 2 sentences. If it is extremely necessary and it's, you're not unable to contain it, then maybe an additional line, but nothing more than that, right? 2 to 3 sentences, say. And then the last line always in all the professional emails has to be the closing remarks, right? So we look at all these 3 one by one. Details, of course, we don't have to look at them separately. It changes from the situation to situation, whatever you want to furnish. But we'll certainly look at the purpose line and the closing remarks, some of the traditionally used closing remarks, etc., in the professional emails. Okay. Now, purpose statement, why is it important? How do we do that, right? And what should be the word choice, right? We'll look at that first. We discussed this already, that this coincides with the beginning of the email in a formal email. Now, the word choice here has to be very carefully selected so as to accurately, adequately, and concisely convey the intent of the email. Now, while we are looking at it, there's one more thing. Purpose statement is very easy to be written, right? If you have coined a good subject line, right? Because what was the subject line? Subject line is very similar to the purpose statement in the body of the email, right? You remember from the last class that we discussed, subject line has to mention everything that is important, all significant things inside the email. Basically, you are writing a short phrase of the purpose why you are writing this email in the subject line. You expand that subject line into a sentence and you have your purpose statement. Okay. Now, the other way around. If it is difficult for you to write down the subject line, then the best way to do that, some people struggle with writing subject line because, you have to get the right kind of phrase, the right kind of words, the important words to be put in there. In such cases, what is the trick? You write down the whole email. You first write down the body of the email. And then you go to the purpose statement of your sentence. You pick that sentence and choose the keywords from that sentence and use it as your subject line, right? So this can be done in both ways. Either you write the subject line and expand it to write your purpose statement, or you first finish off the entire email, then take your purpose line and choose the keywords out of that and place it in your subject line field, right? Both works in similar way. So in that sense, there is a similarity between the contents that you can see in the subject line and the purpose statement. Okay, is this understood? Yeah, any confusions? All right, okay. Now, this could be the only statement in the email in semi-formal and informal emails, right? Now, what does that mean? In formal emails, you have to follow all this structure, right? So first you have the purpose statement, followed by details, followed by the closing remarks. This is a structure we use for formal emails. But in case you are writing an informal email or a semi-formal email, sometimes this purpose statement is the only line you see there because it does not have to follow any conventions or any rules. The informal emails and the semi-formal emails, sometimes the only content that these emails would have is this purpose statement. Okay? Understood? So among the 3 things that we've discussed, which is purpose statement, details, and closing remarks, purpose statement is the most important part of any email, right? In a professional email, it will have to be followed up with the details and the closing remarks. But if it's an informal email or a semi-formal email, just writing that one sentence, one purpose statement is enough to draft that email, right? Because it doesn't follow any structure, right? Okay. Now, purpose statement defines the level of formality, the intended audience, and its outcome. So this is a gist of what are the things that you should include in the purpose statement. You will have to first decide what levels of formality, right? So indirectly, it can also tell you how your salutation or how your closing remarks, complimentary close should look like, right? That is one purpose it can serve. Second thing is it introduces itself to the intended audience. It also tells you who your audience is and what would be the outcomes of your emails, right? So if you look at the statement here on the screen, this gives you a gist of what are the things that you should be writing in a purpose statement, right? So you can write about the audience, you can write about the outcomes, you can also include the formality aspects. Now, all of this happening through the language you use, okay? Now, right, so it sets the communication goal and it also sets the tone and attitude of the message, right? Now, what does it mean? If you're writing an email that requires an urgent action, then that has to be specified in this purpose statement, that you're writing this email for an urgent action towards XYZ, right? Whatever your need is. Or if you're requesting for something, then that request part, the tone of request and the word request itself should appear in the purpose statement. If it's a grievance or complaint email, then that should be the first part that you need to mention in the purpose statement. If it is to express gratitude, say if it's a thank you email for something, then that is to be coded inside the purpose statement, right? In that sense, the purpose statement captures the tone and attitude of your email, right? Because this is the one which is going to carry the major message of your email. Hence, it also serves the purpose of communicating the tone and attitude of the message that you're going to read in the email, right? So all in all of this makes the purpose statement the major part of a professional email, followed up by the details and closing remarks to give it a professional structure, a more formal structure, right? This is all about the purpose statement. Any questions as of now? Okay. If you don't have anything, please go through these phrases that you see on screen. These are all traditionally used or very commonly used phrases to begin an email in different situations. Okay, some 1 to 8 you can read through. They all show you the different kinds of phrases that have been used conventionally in formal literature or professional writing to begin an email, right? Look at it carefully. So, which means they're all used as phrases to begin a purpose statement. Please go through them. And if you have any questions, please ask me. So, with reference to your letter of, right, making reference, or simply saying with reference to your letter dated. In emails, usually we don't, we can, but the usual practice is to say with reference to your email dated on, okay, instead of letter. But letter too, in case, they receive something through the letter, then this also works. Then giving reason, right? I am writing to. This is the most commonly used expression to start off a purpose statement. I am writing to, right? Giving good news, giving bad news, both of these are important. Now, while you're reading this, also make a note of the language used. Giving good news, I or we, I am or we are pleased to. Giving bad news, I or we regret to inform you, right? Making a request, I or we would be grateful if you could. Offering assistance. Offering assistance sometimes can be your closing remarks, and if it is exclusively written only to offer the assistance, then it might as well become the purpose statement. So look at the phrase, phrase or sentence, if you require any further information, please do not hesitate to contact us. Then enclosing something, I enclose or I have enclosed. Referring to future contact, I look forward to receiving your reply. So again, this is a sentence which can function as a closing remark too. Sometimes, you write an email just for this, right? Just to refer to the future contact or just to offer assistance. In such case, this doubles as a purpose statement. But otherwise, usually both of them are used as closing remarks. That is the last line in the email. But if that is the purpose for writing, then they can themselves become the purpose statement. Okay. Okay, can I move on?
Ma'am, can you explain last 2 points?
Last 2 points, as in the one on the slide.
Yes, ma'am.
So these are two different purposes of enclosing something. So if you say enclosing means if you have to attach something, right, in your email. And say somebody has just asked you, say, for example, a workplace email. Somebody tells you, can you please send me the document on population reading that we did last day? Okay. So they are not asking for anything else. They only need the document. So that itself becomes the purpose. In such case, you simply write an email saying that I have enclosed or I enclose hereby the document containing details of the population reading done last Monday, right? So that itself becomes your purpose statement. The last one, referring to future contact, this is more like a reply email, right? There has been a chain of emails that you have sent each other. So to close off that thread, you just send them this future contact email. And in such an email, since you have already discussed and there's nothing else to talk about, you simply put this one line as your email that I look forward to receiving your reply. Okay, so that itself then becomes the purpose statement. Okay, this happens usually when there's a chain of emails, right? There's already a thread going on, and then you're sort of closing it up. Hence, you're going to write this one simple single line as your purpose statement for the last email you're going to have with that person. Okay, understood? Who asked it? Disha, right? Disha, are we good to go? Did you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Now, a little bit more on the structure part. Then the next thing is the details, right? Now, we're only going to discuss what do we mean by the details, right? So after purpose statements, we talked about the next 1, 2, or 3 sentences, the details. What can these details include? Anything. Depends on the purpose you're writing. So they provide, what do? They do provide the context or premise to the reader, right? So you know the purpose. Now you want to know a little more of the context and the premise, then the detailed statement does that work, right? In semi-formal, informal, it is optional. We discussed this, right? So in informal and semi-formal email, sometimes the only statement you have in the body of email is the purpose statement, right? But that's not the case with formal professional emails. These things are compulsory and it's a part of the structure of the emails, right? It's not optional in professional emails, but yes, semi-formal, informal, the detailed statement and the closing remarks are optional. Now, what can they include? They can include names of the guests, speakers, dignitaries, designations, date, time, name of the venue, organization, details of the organizing committee, of the project, of the conference, and so on and so forth, right? Any details that's considered necessary to support the purpose statement that you have written can go into these 2 sentences, right? So there's no bar on what you can write and what you cannot write. Of course, it is defined and it is understood by the purpose that you're writing the email for. Okay, so anything, any information that supports and helps you further the purpose you're writing for can become a part of the details, right? That's all. So this is not a very complicated part. Now, the last part in the structure, closing remarks. These are, as the first statement, the first line mentions, a very integral part of the formal emails. If you're writing a professional email, then this is a part or this is a sentence in the body of the email which you cannot do without. This is compulsory. You have to include the closing remarks before you end your email. Any email without a closing remarks would be considered thoroughly unprofessional. Okay. What do they do? Why do we write closing remarks? To save your emails from abrupt endings, right? So what do we mean by abrupt endings? So it's like, you were talking about something, you gave the details, you talked about it, and then suddenly you close and go. Okay. You're not giving any heads up to anybody. So it's like, it's very similar to, say you visited somebody's home, right? And you just, you talked to them for a long time and you got up and just left like that. You didn't even wish them bye. You did not properly, tell them that, okay, nice talking to you. Now it's time for me. I'll see you next time, right? So these kind of etiquettes, right? These are all part of writing etiquettes, right? In the first class, when we were discussing email etiquettes, we discussed a few things. And this is again one special aspect of writing etiquettes, that you do not abruptly close anything. Like you cannot close a conversation with a friend abruptly. You cannot abruptly get out of somebody's home without even saying bye. Same thing applies to writing as well, right? So to save your email from such kind of unprofessionalism, you add a line at the end of your email in order to make it more smooth and formal and polite, right? So this all counts towards the politeness aspects in writing. Right? Closing remarks help you do that, right? So they are courtesy statements, or they add politeness factors to your writing, right? And additionally, with all this, you leave a good impression on the reader, right? It's more of a gentle approach to writing than simply leaving it coarse and rough. Okay. Additional function. So in addition to giving it courtesy and politeness and everything, the additional function of the closing remark is also to keep the receiver of the email in loop, right? In case, like we were discussing, there's going to be a chain of communication. There's going to be a thread of communication between the sender and the receiver. Then the closing remarks also helps the receiver to be in loop, okay? And also motivates them to take action on what you are asking them to do, right? So these are some of the reasons why a closing remarks becomes essential or an integral part of your formal email. Okay. Understood? Any questions? Okay. So then we are going to look at a few useful phrases that you can use to write closing remarks. I think we have at least 4 categories, 4 types of closing remarks, and these types are dependent on the kinds of purposes that people write for, right? So one of the expressions is future time focus, right? So when you're planning to continue the conversation further, or you think you will have to get back to this person in the future time, then you use the expressions that you see on screen, right? I look forward to hearing from you soon, or I look forward to hearing from you next Sunday, or on Monday, or I look forward to hearing from you in the afternoon, right? So in some case, you simply say soon when you're not sure, right? You do not know when the next meeting would be. You simply say soon and finish it off. But in case you're specific and you want them to meet on the specific time that you want, that part you specifically mention in the closing remarks. So if it's Monday, Tuesday, then you mention it properly. Or if it's in the afternoon, that also you include. If you're unsure, you simply say hearing from you soon, right? That's how it is classified. Second one, I look forward to meeting with you, right? So I look forward to meeting with you, and same thing applies. If you say soon, then you're unsure. If you're giving a specific date, that means you expect them to be there on the time and the date specified. Third one, I look forward to seeing you soon. So see, hearing, meeting, and seeing, right? Meeting and seeing, this one can be used as equally replaceable things. Both mean the same thing. But these are also expressions that fit very well as closing remarks, right? Fourth one, I look forward to your reply. Okay, simple enough to understand. We look forward to a successful working relationship in the future. Okay, now these are more like courtesy statements, right? These are not something that demands action from their end, but this is like, okay, more like courtesy statements, polite sentences. I need to close this, so I'm going to use this as a courtesy sentence, right? Business communications, etc., would use sentences like this. We look forward to a successful working relationship in the future, right? Please advise as necessary, right? This is again something that is based on taking actions. You're calling for action. Then I would appreciate your immediate attention to this matter. Again, is a situation where you are demanding somebody's action, right? You're requesting someone's action. Okay, so all of these are for future actions, right? This is the first category of closing remarks. Now, second one would be, again, courtesy statements where you're expressing gratitude, right? So I thank you for your help. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your assistance. Thank you for your support, right? I really appreciate the help or time, so on and so forth, right? I thank you once again for your help in this matter. So simple gratitude statements, courtesy elements, okay? Another set of expressions for specifically calling for action. Please call me to set a time for the meeting. Would you make an appointment? So now see, in the previous cases where you were making in these expressions, the last two, you are being a little vague. You are not being specific. You are saying, please advise as necessary. I would appreciate your immediate attention to this matter. A little bit of a vague statement, right? But you still are calling the reader to take some action on something that's mentioned. But in this case, the expressions specifically meant for call for action, this specifies a more urgency to the matter, right? Which is why what action has to be taken is very clearly specified in the closing remarks. Please call me to set a time for the meeting. Would you make an appointment with the manager for tomorrow? Please find the code number for the file at the earliest. I hope you would take an action as early as possible. This could be a little vague, but the other three, all of them are calling for specific actions, right? So specific action also can be coded as a closing remarks in the as a closing remark in the professional. Now the last set of them, again, courtesy statements like the thank you closing remarks, offering assistance. Now, this could mean or not mean anything, right? This can be simply a courtesy statement. This could also mean that you're actually going to do the thing that you're suggesting, right? So plenty of examples here. Please go through them. If I can be of assistance, please do not hesitate to contact me. If you require any further information, feel free to contact me. If you require any further information, let me know. Please feel free to contact or write to me if you need any further information or clarification or assistance, right? So you don't have to write all of them. Choose any one based on what you're writing. Please do not hesitate to contact or write to me if you need any further information or clarifications or assistance. Please let me know if you have any questions. I hope the above is useful to you. Should you need, now these sentences, should you need any further information, please do not hesitate to contact me. This is a very formal expression, right? Among all the things that you have read in this section on offering assistance, this is the most formal sentence, right? Formality aspect is very, very high in this. Should you need any further information, please do not hesitate to contact me. There is no particular place in where you should use it. You can use it in all kinds of professional emails. If you think you're writing to someone for the first time and have no familiarity with them, then probably you can use it there. But this can be used in other kinds of emails also. So there is no restriction to where you can use it. It's just that this is a very formal way of writing down. Okay. Now, please contact me if there are any problems. Again, that's another way. A semi-formal sort of expression, let me know if you need anything else. Now, the moment you say semi-formal, what does it mean? This is completely reserved for people who are one place above you in the organization or people who are of your same level and your subordinates. But this is certainly not for someone who's a super senior, right? Semi-formal can be used for someone who's just above you at your level and then who's below you in the structure. But semi-formal is definitely not allowed for someone who's a super senior, okay? Someone who's much above in the hierarchy, right? Same goes for the last line. Drop me a line if I can do anything else for you, right? Again, this is reserved for people who are at your level or slightly just one step above you or someone who's below you in the hierarchy, right? So the main thing when you're coining these expressions or when you're writing down these sentences is to keep in mind about the formality aspect, which is basically your audience. Know your audience, know who you are writing to, okay? And then make a choice of what expressions or what sentences would be fit enough to write, right? Okay, any questions that you have?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay, one last thing. This is going to be just one slide just to show you how to end the emails. Just give me a moment. I'll share that one as well and we can go to the activity part, whatever time is left.
Ma'am, can you
Okay.
share these slides?
Sorry?
Can you share the previous slide, the beginning and closing remarks?
Beginning and closing remarks. Okay, that's from a different one. Okay, let me finish this one and then I'll go back to
Yes.
that, okay? Okay, so now this one, last one is on ending email. So as the salutations and the other things that we saw, this is about the last part, right? So in the contents of the email, the last part that you have is the complementary close, right? So subject line, salutation, purpose statement, details, closing remarks, and then comes your complementary close. And this is about that, okay? Ending emails. So again, like in the salutation part, there's a range from more formal to less formal. More formal would be the expressions like best regards, okay, or yours sincerely, or simply sincerely. Earlier, there was a practice of writing things like yours truly, yours faithfully. These are still written, but they're considered out of, not out of fashion. I would say it's not considered as professional as it used to be before, right? A safer choice would be to go ahead with expressions like these, right? Best regards, yours sincerely, in case you want to include that politeness element, or simply say sincerely, right? That also works. This would be the more formal method of addressing. And even in the most formal expression, these are the expressions you can use, right? For even say when you're writing to somebody who's outside the organization, who's not familiar to you, in case of complementary close, the first block works very well with them. So there's no separate one as we had for salutation or anything. Here, you can use best regards, yours sincerely and sincerely for them as well, right? Then the semi-formal one would be regards, best wishes, all the best, right? And the last one would be best and yours. So this is the least formal among the three that you see here, okay? These expressions that you see here, I'm sure there can be more that, you can coin on this based on the template that you see here. I have not included everything that you can see in all emails, but this is just a gist of what is very commonly used practice in writing a complimentary close in emails, right? Yeah, that's all. Nothing more in this section. All you need to know is the three things and the template that you see here. You can always build on this. There's no bar on that. But know that these are the levels of formality that you need to exercise while writing the complimentary close. Okay. Okay. Now, the previous thing that you were asking, the last slide, right? Just give me a moment. Oh. Why do I not see it? Yes. Okay. Now, what in this? Somebody was asking a question. Who had a question? Somebody said they had a question on this.
These expressions like the before the should you need any further information, all the expressions above it, and they are formal or they're semi-formal, or like where we will use those.
It's written there, no? Should you need any further information? This is the most formal. It's
No,
written
ma'am,
very
the
formal.
ones above it, the rest.
The ones above it. The ones above it, they do not have any specific order. You can use them in any email. There's not a problem.
We can use them in
They
informal.
they can be used in formal situations also. See, in informal or lesser formal versions, no, you actually do not see a lot of such expressions. But all those things that you see above the should you need any further information part, they can be used in both formal and more formal and the lesser formal kinds of emails. They're common to both. Okay. Only those expressions that are marked specifically, they are a little different. Like the should you one is very formal, and this let me know and drop me a line, they're semi-formal in nature. Rest of them can be used either for the more formal version or the less formal version. Not an issue.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, can you please share these slides?
Yeah, I will share. I was actually asking, see, this one is actually a PPT that is under construction. So usually what I do is I share the whole of it together, but I'll see if I can maybe at least upload the PDF versions of it so that you can refer to it. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Okay. So not much of time left yet. I will prefer that we do a bit of an exercise here. Let me go to that document here, and maybe we'll at least do the first two.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, can we use construction for PPT? Just you say that.
Can you use?
You use construction for PPT. Is it right?
Construction for PPT in the sense, I'm sorry, if it's a technical thing, then I'm not very well versed with that.
No, ma'am. You say just now
Huh.
that PPT was under construction.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. You definitely have that kind of liberty in using language. No problem.
Okay.
Okay. You can see the screen, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Huh. We'll try and do a few questions from the first and second. The first one is just a simple question. The second one, maybe say at least 1, 2, 3 you can do, and or maybe first 2, and then we can continue with this in the next class after we discuss the formal language part. Let's look at the first one. Look at the following ways of beginning an email. Number them from 1 to 4 according to how formal you think the beginnings are, right? So you have a few expressions given here. They're all salutations, right? So your task is to mark them from the most formal to the least formal. Okay. So 1 will be most formal and 4 will be least formal. So just take a look at it and maybe just 10, 20 seconds and then we can discuss it. We'll do it right away. You don't have to write anything there. That I'll do in the next class. Right now, if I share and then there's not much time left. So next week when you come to the class, I'll share this document like I did in the last class. So you can work on it. Right now, we'll just discuss it. Okay. So you have Dear Satya, you have Dear Mrs. Rafia, then you have Hi Lal, and you have Sheila. Which one is the most formal among this?
Ma'am, second one.
Rafia.
Second.
Second? Yeah, you agree? Dear Mrs. Rafia, right? Among the one that you have given, that has been given here, the most formal one would be Dear Mrs. Rafia. Now, the second one,
Ma'am,
the second
first
formal
one.
one, which is the one?
First one.
Dear
Right? Dear Satya. Dear Satya is the next formal one. That is, it is lesser, less formal than Dear Mrs. Rafia. Still, it is formal, right? Dear Satya. Now, the next one in the levels of formality,
Fourth one.
third, ma'am.
Fourth
the
one.
third one, right? The third one is the next in formality, Hi Lal. Okay. That would be the third one. It is more formal than just writing the person's first name. Yeah, you're right, Subrata. That order is right. So the right order here would be 2, 1, 3, and 4, right? That's the right order. Sheila, or even if you have something like just hi, okay, we have Hi Lal here, but if you had just hi, right, then Sheila and hi are at the same level. Okay, there's no much of a difference between writing somebody's first name alone and simply saying hi. Both of that would be at the same level. But if you have hi and followed up by somebody's name, then that's a little more formal, teeny weeny bit more formal than simply taking somebody's name. Okay. Right. Although just writing hi and just using the first name is something that's reserved for very close friends, even in workplaces. We do not use it as a formal expression anywhere. Okay. Next one. Write an appropriate salutation for each of the following email. Let's try if you can do this. So you can either leave it in the chat box or maybe you can just unmute and speak, but please don't speak over each other, okay? A colleague messages you to ask if you are free for lunch. What would be a proper salutation for this? So you're required to write an email, right? And if you're supposed to write an email of the situation, a colleague messages you to ask if you're free for lunch. How would you think the salutation of that email would look like? First, tell me, will it be formal, semi-formal, very formal? What is the situation?
Ma'am, semi-formal.
Semi-formal, right? Or simply say less formal, right? It's something between a very personal thing between you and that person, right? Yet at the workplace. So what kind of salutation would fit here? Do you have to say dear here?
No, ma'am.
Now that will depend on whether this colleague is close to you or is this a colleague who is, simply inviting others for a lunch or something, okay, or to you for a lunch to discuss something, right? So based on that, you either use dear XYZ, you definitely will not say dear Mr. XYZ and all. You can simply say dear XYZ, or you can say hi XYZ or hello XYZ, right? This would be the right kind of salutation for this situation. Got it?
Okay, ma'am.
Huh. Okay, one more, and I think I will have to close for today because there's another class at 6. Someone who you do not know writes to you to ask for a job. Now, analyze the situation first for its formality and then decide what would be the right salutation. Someone who you do not know writes to you to ask for a job. Dear Mr. or Mrs. or Miss, in case the person is unmarried, XYZ. Yes, that is the right way to do that. Or alternatively, you can also use XYZ you've used, but in case you know the person's name, then you can also use the person's full name, right? First name or full name, both are okay. Right? Others agree? Will this be a good way to write the salutation in such situations? Dear followed by, yes, correct. Dear sir or madam, yeah, you can use that if the person is unknown, but mostly in such cases, you will know who you're writing to. But okay, dear sir or madam is also fine. Let's say okay. In terms of formality and all, fine. Okay? All right. Maybe one more. Your colleague emails you for the transfer of an urgently required document. Your colleague emails you for the transfer of an urgently required document. Now, what is the situation? Formal, semi-formal, very formal. So because of the nature of the action, this can be considered a formal, right? A more formal situation, right? So then how will your salutation look? This person is writing to you for a strictly professional reason, right? What could be a possible salutation? Semi-formal, yeah. It has to be a little more formal in this case, not semi-formal, right? Because see, urgently required document. So the tone has to be in formal domains, in professional domains, to whenever you have to convey urgency, you make sure that, your emails are on more formal side. Yes, dear Mr. XYZ or dear Mr. and full name. Okay. Or even if you avoid Mr., still it would be okay. Right. So dear XYZ, dear Mr. XYZ, dear or full name, right? So you're right. Right. So keep this in mind, even if it is, say, between colleagues who are at the same levels, if the matter is professional in the sense if it is more urgent, then it has to be treated as a more formal thing. So in order to convey that the thing is urgent, you stick with more formal language so that the person understands the seriousness of the situation. Okay. So all this analysis usually happens when you deal with scenarios. We'll do a couple of more emails to understand that. Okay. Okay. So I think good enough for today. We've already taken, I think, additional 2-3 minutes. So I'll meet you next week again and we can continue it from there further. Okay. So thank you so much for joining in today.
Ma'am, we'll share this PPT, ma'am.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. See you all.